So we tried to go to Atco today for the open, and notice how I said the word tried. It was just a test and tune today. I feel like I wasted a personal day, but I really didn't. Yeah, definitely was kind of a waste of a day, but honestly, if we didn't go today and have all this stuff happen, we would probably not be racing tomorrow. So basically what happened, we got the car parked last night this morning, about 1 o'clock in the morning. Came in, had some more things we need to finish up on the car, like adding 2 more Zeus's, and this is gonna be a really shaky video, by the way, because we're on Jackson Road and it's very lopsided. But added 2 more Zeus's to the front because I didn't feel comfortable running the car without 2 more Zeus's.
We don't have the sway bars.
So, and we don't have the sway bars. Oh, okay, let me back up. I'm really bad at telling stories, and I want to keep this short because I'm hoping I'm going to have more content in this video. But basically, in a nutshell, you know, we spread the lifter at Cecil. The wheel bearing on the RV also stuck. You know that, so that's at the shop. We don't have that back yet. On Monday, I went to get my back adjusted because I was going to get into a race car this weekend. So I always get an adjustment before. And I left the chiropractor, I came home, and I went to back up, and my tow hitch was gone. And I know it was there when I went to the chiropractor because I saw it on my backup camera. And I stopped like short enough to make sure I wouldn't hit the fence with the tow hitch. So tow hitch was gone. So that happened. Came in, parked at 1 o'clock in the morning this morning, had some more things to finish up, like the Zeus's, which was pretty cool because as Dad was finishing that up, Caitlin from Atco came up and she said, can you do a little thing? Talk to these Millville High School juniors and seniors who are in the Automotive program. They're here for a field trip to Atco. So that was really cool. I got to talk to them about it. I think they were a little like taken aback. Like they were looking at it like, oh my gosh, like how many millions of dollars does this cost? Just really tried to get the point across so you could start with a bracket car and a street car. That's what I did. I started in a street car and worked my way up to this race car. Maybe I should go back to a street car after this point in the year. But, so anyway, we talked to them for about an hour while Dad was finishing up the Zeus's. Talked to the instructor. It was a great opportunity. Not many racers got the opportunity, so it was kind of cool that they picked us to do it. But yeah, that was pretty cool. So I feel like I was not teaching today, but I still taught today. So yeah, I want my personal day back. Just kidding. I actually do kind of want it back. Anyway, so I went and I drove the car around. The car felt good. We ground the line lock, so because we knew there was a line lock issue at Cecil. Went to make a pass and I went to put it in gear and I did it like the way it sounded. So I took it back to the pits because I'm going to always prioritize everything, the car, over making a run. And of course I'm driving it back to the pits and it sounds completely fine. So maybe I was just being a little nervous because I'm used to things going wrong. Oh, I forgot something. Before I even went up to make the lanes, I was warming it up. Car started to get a little warm because I warmed it up. Went to turn the fan on to cool it down, and it blew the radiator hose off. So it looked like a big bomb of smoke went off. So, all I saw, Dad says it was his fault. It was an accident. We should have tightened the hose better.
I tightened the hose up the first time I put the engine in. I didn't tighten it up the second time.
Yeah, he tightened it up the first time I put it in. He didn't tighten up the second time, but that's okay. All I saw was $50 laying on the pavement though, because we brought Evans coolant and that's less expensive. So all I saw was Evans, and they didn't have it at Atco.
Yeah, because they don't pay contingency anymore.
They don't pay contingency anymore.
Yeah, so nobody's using it.
So Mom was able to go to Lou's at Ben Pella and get some Evans for us. So she came back with that. But in the meantime, while she was handling that, we tried to make a run. That's why I didn't like how the car sounded, because we still had enough coolant in there. Didn't like how the car sounded. So I put it back. Then I went to drive it back up. And I did my burnout. The line lock still didn't work. So got to figure out that problem. But that's like lowest on the priority list right now. I can power brake it. So I went to go stage the car. And they tell me to drive it back because there's an oil leak. So I drive it back to the pits and we start taking things apart. And I'm like, well, not apart, but we start looking at things. And Dad's like, it's the brand new oil pan gasket. And we're like, it's brand new. How is it leaking? Like, we've had the same oil pan gasket and we've rerun it with several engines. And we finally went to a brand new one. And of course it's leaking. So now it's starting to rain. Dad and I are soaked. We don't look that bad, but I had hood on, but like, we're soaked. So So it's brand new oil pan gasket. So we are doing everything in our power to make this race. We're taking it back. Got a new gasket. We're going to try putting the gasket in, and goal was to be back tomorrow on track with no time shots in the car, and hopefully everything goes well. Honestly, they keep saying like you're running out of things for them to go wrong. It can only get better from here, but I don't know. Something just keeps like finding its way to bite us. And I mean, this was brand new. Like, we tried to replace this so this wouldn't happen. So fingers crossed.
Yeah,
we'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, we didn't take it apart last year. So we reused that. So we usually get about 2 years on those gaskets if I get them off clean. And this time here we get a brand new gasket, and lo and behold, it decides to trip. Oh, and of course in the back where you can't get to it to just try to seal it up.
Yeah, so it's like, everybody's like, why can't you just seal it? I'm like, we can't get to it. So hopefully we'll be back tomorrow with good news to report. I believe it's 2 or 3 time shots tomorrow. I haven't even looked at the schedule because that's like been lowest on the priority list. So fingers crossed we'll be okay this time, but we'll keep you updated either way. First pass, and it felt a little slow, but it actually was pretty fast. It went in 10:55 at 133.67 on the throttle stop. So I had a decent amount of timer in it. I have my timer that I normally run when I do my slow, like when it's slow air. So okay, overall kind of happy with it. Should have been a little bit faster, but it also blew out a bunch of brown smoke because we were running regular gas with additive in it to not run our expensive fuel, and it was probably just getting it all completely out of the line. So it should pick up the next pass. If it doesn't, it's probably because of the weather change, but we'll keep you updated, trying to style this car, and we're gonna go through, check all our rockers, make sure nothing adjusted, check our timing, and hopefully we'll be fine. So we found the second oil leak. It was the evac. We replaced them a couple years ago. I guess it was time for new ones. We normally keep stuff in stock, but this was the one $12 part that we overlooked that caused us a major headache. So just replaced those because luckily somebody had them here, and fingers crossed we're good now. We should be. So we'll keep you updated. track. I realized I didn't fill you in on my second time shot yesterday. So they ended up giving us 3. First time shot, I went to 10:55 on the throttle stop. So I took my numbers from last year and I tried to slow it up to a 10:86 just to see if it would get me in the ballpark. And I figured it would go in 86 with this timer if it didn't clean out. But if it did clean out, I figured it would go in 83 and 84. And it did end up cleaning out. Went a 10:83 at 133. So kept my mile an hour, just slowed it down. So I was honestly happy. I went from 10:55 to 10:83, which is kind of what I expected to do if it cleaned out. Car was still leaking though, so still tried to fix that. Went up for the 3rd time shot and did the burnout when I was about to stage the car. They ended up sending us off, and it was now leaking from around the header, this time on the passenger side. So we went under it, and we ended up finding out that it was coming from the intake manifold. So we permatexed that, and then it was still coming out. So we found out it was the breathers, replaced those. So we went, got something to eat, came back, drove it around, and the car was fine. Left a pad underneath it for the night, came back this morning, and it was completely dry. So that was the best news of the day. Went up for first round because they were supposed to have a time shot today, but they ended up canceling it, and that's why they gave us the extra one yesterday. And car was fine. I did 3 warm-up laps. I got up to the lanes, and I cleaned it out a couple times, and it sounded fine. When I went to do the burnout, I just heard it breaking up around 5,000, 6,000 RPM. I'm like, I don't like it. And it sounded totally fine at idle, but I'm just listening to it in the burnout. I'm like, I just didn't like it at all. Went to stage the car, got on the 2-step, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like 47. And I'm just listening to it, and I'm like not watching the tree. I'm honestly impressed my light was as good as it was because I was just listening to it. And I let it go, and it just fell right over. So when it fell over, I just lifted. And I just drove and I shifted it, and then I just drove off on the first turn off.
Like you were supposed
I did pull over to the wall. I didn't see anybody coming after me, so or telling me to stop. So I just drove it off. I was like looking in the rearview mirror the entire time. So I just ended up driving it off. And I got back, and before my dad even got back, I had the hood off, and I found the carb cap laying on the alternator. So we're guessing what happened was the carb cap was probably halfway on the carburetor, and when I ended up lifting, it probably ended up blowing the carburetor cap completely off, and that's how it landed by the alternator. So we got it back. Huh?
So we discovered a new way to lose.
Yeah, this was a new one for us. Gonna add this to the list of ways to lose a race. But I ended up getting back, and where was I going with this? Totally forgot because I just got distracted. I had the hood off, and that's where it was, the carb cap. So we went over the car. Everything looks fine, so that's good news. I tested the 2-step, and it's at 47. Sounds fine. It's not breaking up.
Hurts your ears.
It hurts your ears. I mean, that's why the helmet's nice. It's kind of a buffer, but it sounded fine. So the goal is to be back next weekend at Atco, running Super Pro and Door Slammer. I have not decided if I'm going to take the throttle stop off yet or not. I'm leaning towards taking it off and running it all out, but we'll see how that goes. Haven't really went completely all out all year. Only made 2 good passes, but it is what it is. If that's the case, I'm turning the 2-step down so I don't possibly blow the tire off. And yeah, we'll take it from there, see how that goes. But bright side, I got 2 decent hits this weekend. I fixed the oil leak, and now I will probably never leave a carb cap on a carburetor before first round again.
That was because the pollen was so heavy.
Yeah, the pollen was so bad. It was like we kept wiping the car down, and there was another layer of pollen on it. Wiped the car down, there was another layer of pollen on it. I have pollen all over my clothes from just being on top of the car, and it was just, it was bad. So, I mean, it is what it is. We also, all things considered, we met a lot of people this weekend, had a lot of people approach us, ask a lot of questions, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, the school was cool that we got to talk to, the high school. So all things considered, it was good that we got out there. It was nice to actually get the car out running and not be sitting home depressed that the car is not working. So met a lot of nice people, got to see people we haven't seen in a while because it was free to get in for spectators. Yeah, we got some major favors to help us out, and a lot of people helped us so I could get up to the lanes for those time shots and for first round. And if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be able to do this. Especially Jamie too, where we keep my car. I won't be able to do it without him. Especially because I had him up till like 1:30 on Friday night. When he had to get up at 5 to go racing with his son. He was helping me fix my car so I could go racing on Saturday. So I'm very grateful to have all those people in my circle, because without them this wouldn't be possible. So I don't have in the car footage because I started to set up the GoPro mount. Ooh, that was a big dip. I started to set up the GoPro mount and I couldn't find an Allen key to like close it, and then I just gave up when I walked away. And Dad was busy and I didn't want to bother him. I found an Allen key, it just didn't fit. So I didn't feel like doing it. It was a lot of work. So maybe next week we'll have the GoPro in. Honestly, it wouldn't have been good footage anyway. So because I didn't get it in until after the second time shot, and then I ended up losing that. We almost just got a bird. See, this is why we're kind of funny. Bird just flew out of this giant turkey vulture just flew out in front of the car. So I just gave up. I don't have anything else to say. I just gave up. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I was lazy, but and then I couldn't find the Allen key, which that was me being lazy. Try not to find it. And then I also didn't get it. I wouldn't have had any good footage.
Dad was in the way looking for the oil leak.
Dad was looking for the oil leak. I didn't feel like climbing over him.
You didn't feel like climbing.
I didn't feel like climbing over him. I was getting sunburnt, if you can't tell, so I was just going to take more losses. Wasn't worth it to keep adding to the loss list. But I mean, after the way that the past like month has gone, especially the past week between the tow hitch getting stolen and everything, I'm going to cut the losses now. But goal is to be back out for next weekend, and we'll definitely try to show you some footage. Fingers crossed the weather holds out. Right now it's looking okay, but you never know. Things change. Especially, it's like every weekday is beautiful and then the weekend's disgusting. So if not, I think our next race is at Cecil County, and it's a .90 race, so we'll be back on the throttle stop, and hopefully Cecil will be better to me this time. But yeah, I thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning into our...
Want me to do the technical part of the show about the oil leak?
So the reason why it was leaking oil, he's going to get all technical, and because he'll sound better than I am with the whole pressurizing the crankcase. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, the first oil leak that we had was right in the center of the engine, which was coming back at the rear main cap at the oil pan gasket. So my first thought was we had the oil pan, the oil pan off for a couple years. Maybe we fatigued the oil pan. Maybe the gasket wasn't made correctly due to a lot of parts aren't being made correctly anymore. And we sealed it up with the right stuff. That's why we were going to get back to the track till like 3 o'clock in the morning to drop the car back off. So we fixed that leak. Go back up, and we wind up having another leak, which is coming up from the top. And that's where we were coming with the back of the intake manifold gasket. Okay, that happens when you RTP that up. Sometimes that can happen. Fixed that leak. Then we got another leak. Now this is when I started to sit there and think. Now it was coming from the valve cover gasket. Okay, we used the valve cover gasket for a couple years. I have a new valve cover gasket, no big deal. No sooner I put that valve cover gasket, I thought, we're evacing the crankcase through the header. So I thought, let me check the check valves. I checked the one check valve, it's sucking. I go to the other side, and this is the side where the valve cover is leaking. It's blowing combustion into the engine. So we started pressurizing the crankcase. So what was happening is the first weak link would have been the oil pan. Then the second weak link was the intake manifold. Then the third weak link was the valve cover gaskets. So once we got rid of that, luckily JKR, Jeff Kondratyk's company, was there, and he had a set of new check valves. So we bought check valves from him, threw them on. That solved that problem. So then the next problem that we only had was like with the baffling, because obviously our baffling had a little bit of oil in it, and Mike Parsons was nice enough to give us a new set of baffles that screw into the valve cover and sit up a little bit higher so oil wouldn't get slung into them. And then they also have a screen in them, not a baffle, but more like a stainless steel mesh to help catch the oil and keep it from dropping down in the header, because we figure with so many times we got flagged off at a track, they're going to go over this car with an electron microscope when we pull up to the lane, so we don't want nothing dripping from this car. And that was the good news. When we went up, nothing was dripping from the car. The bad news was we left the cap on the carburetor. So if that ever runs into you where you're chasing leaks and you're evacuating it through the header collector,
check for your carb
check the
cap.
check valves. And again, we normally keep the check valves in stock in the trailer, because you never know when these things are going to go and they're going to bite you. But unfortunately, with what we went through the last 2.5 years, we used up all our inventory. So, and we never replaced it, because you look up out of stock, then you forget. So obviously we're ordering 2 sets of check valves on Monday.
So, sorry if this is like all over the place too. I'm splicing a lot of like this weekend together, so hopefully it makes sense. But
yeah,
trying to splice a lot of it together.
Valves if you're running them, always have an extra set.
Yeah, so trying to splice it together. Hopefully it makes sense, but it'll be fine. It was a long weekend. I don't think any of what we're saying makes sense, because we're super tired. But